Hello everyone. Welcome to the Intermediate C++ Programming course. In this first video we're going to look at the very basics of a C++ program, and we're going to write a program called Hello World. In this course we'll be using Microsoft Visual Studio, and I'll be using version 2012 for these videos, but any of the versions that you may run across should work just fine, and I think the latest one available at this time is version 2015. Well, let's get started. Here we have Visual Studio all set up with a project to develop C++ programs. If you do not know how to do that, then there are a number of resources available. Just do a search for how do I get and install Microsoft Visual Studio 2012 or whatever version you would like to have, and you'll find a multiple listing of resources to help you with that. But given that we already have that installed and we're ready to use it, then we're going to add a new item to begin with. So under the project menu there are some choices. We can add a new item or we can add an existing item. Well, we want to add a new item, so we'll select that box or that option, and this dialog box appears. On the left hand panel you'll notice Visual C++ highlighted, and that's what we want, and of these things below it, the thing that we want to develop is code, so we'll select code. In the central panel, you'll see now a new set of selections has appeared. And the thing that we want to do is already highlighted. We want a C++ program, so that's what we're going to select. At the bottom where it says name, we need to give our program a name. And since we're going to do Hello World, we'll call it hello.cpp, which means C++. Then we'll click Add in order to add that item. Now our development environment shows a large white area with the cursor blinking at the upper left, and this is where we will type in the code for our program. On the right hand side, under the Solution Explorer in the folder Source Files, you see there's a new item called hello.cpp. Also there's a tab at the top right above our editor called hello.c++. Well, let's start out by just typing in the a very basic C++ program. If you want to have some comments that describe your program, then you begin the line with a couple of slashes, and that means everything else on this line will be considered a comment. It's in this area that you can put your name, the date. You can put a description of your program here. Whatever you put there will not be considered part of the program. It's just some ancillary text to describe what's going on, and it will be ignored by the compiler. Okay, so this will be the first C++ program, and we'll call it Hello World. You can also have blank spaces. The next thing that we will do, and this is what will appear at the top of all of your programs, and that will be a list of what we call preprocessor directives, and those all begin with a #include. Okay, so that's a system command that indicates that we want to include a library of headers to go with any functions that we want to use in our program. Okay, so we are certainly going to need an IO stream. So we'll do a #include for IO stream, and this allows us to use our keyboard as input and our screen as output, and the functions that we'll be using for input and output will be included in that list. Some other very handy headers we'll be using consistently will be these. So we can do a #include for stream, and these are enclosed by the triangular braces. So the F stream will be used to input information from a file and to be able to write output to a file, and we'll be getting to that later. Let's also do a #include for the manipulators, as they're called, IONANIP. So the manipulators are things that allow us to format the output, to specify how many print positions we want. Is it scientific format? Is it fixed? And a lot of options like that that help us with output formatting. Now the last thing that I'll include in this example is going to be string. Include string. C++ has a very rich environment for working with strings. It's much better than ordinary C that existed prior to C++. And as we go forward with the videos in this course, then you'll see all the functions and things that we'll be using out of that library. But for the purposes of this beginning program and using this program as something that you could copy and paste in the future, I want to go ahead and include it. The other thing that we want to use here is a namespace. And we say using namespace std, and you do use a semicolon after that. Now this just indicates, or really gives us a shortcut. By using this namespace, then we don't have to write as long, we don't have to write statements that are quite as long in the body of our program. There would be some prefixes that we would need to use if we did not have this. So this saves us some typing. Now we're ready for the main program, and I'm going to use int main void. Now you may see other ways of doing this. You might see instead of int here, you might see void, and in parentheses you might see just nothing. But I'm going to follow this this approach, where the main program will be declared as a type integer, and to indicate it does not have any arguments at this time, we'll use void, which just means nothing. We're not going to be inputting or letting, we won't be starting up our main program by giving it some input. The program will ask for input or output. Will ask for input and produces output as we go along. Now the body of the program consists of a block of code that goes between these two curly braces. Our program is really simple. We're just going to put the words hello world on the screen, and we're going to use the output function called cout, and then these two triangular braces pointing to the left, and this thing is called an insertion operator. Then we will put in quotes what we want to print to the screen, which is hello world. Okay, a double quote, and then another insertion operator, because I want to put a carriage return. I want to go to the next line. So this is end L for end line. Okay, so that's the main part of this. But as we'll see, if you want this information to remain on screen instead of just briefly flashing and then the program terminating, we need some way to make sure that the output window remains visible. And one way to do this in Visual Studio and using Windows is to use a system command. So we'll do system, and then in parentheses a double quote, and lowercase pause, double quote, right paren, semicolon. And then again, following conventional standards, we will do a return 0 at the bottom of our program. Now one thing that you do have to do is to type these things correctly. Return. That is your very first C++ program. So you have now typed in the program, and in order to see if it works, then we need to build it. We need to run it through the compiler, and that's what we'll do next. To do that, under the Build menu at the top, we want to select Build Solution, or as you can see, we could do the function key F7 to get the same result. If the compilation did succeed, then in the bottom part of the window, then you will see a little statement that says Build 1 succeeded. If it had failed, then it would say Build 1 failed over here. So once that is completed without any errors, then we are ready to execute the program. To execute it, we can press the little green VCR control at the top on the toolbar. And when we do that, we will get a window which will have reversed video. It will be black with white text. And that will be what we will see all of our results in from these programs. So here's the output window. And the output shows hello world. And then on the next line, we have press any key to continue. So the end line is here, which caused us to go to the next line on the screen. And the system pause causes the sentence press any key to continue to be printed out. Now this window will continue to stay on screen so you can see the output until you press any key on the keyboard or until you click the X in the upper right hand corner. So I'm just going to press the space key, and you'll see that the program will terminate. Well, this is your introduction then to the very first C++ program. And let me go ahead and fix one last typo I see there, hello world, before I stop. And this then will conclude our introductory first video for our C++ programming course.